Welcome to the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery.
Welcome to our deep dive. And today we're going to be looking at Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah.
You know, the book that everyone says you got to read if you want to
Right.
actually make some changes in your life.
It's like the Habit Bible.
Yeah, totally.
For sure.
So we're going to go a little deeper than just
Yeah.
how to set a goal.
Yeah.
We're going to look at the real science behind how these tiny little everyday things you do
Right.
can really add up to big results.
Yeah. And that's the thing about this book that's so cool is that it's not
Right.
just like a motivational kind of rah-rah thing. It actually gets into the nuts and bolts of how your brain works.
Right.
And how habits are formed.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so effective, I think, because it's like it gives you a real framework
Yeah.
that you can use.
So speaking of change, didn't James Clear himself have a pretty big turnaround using these principles?
He did.
Wasn't there a story about a serious injury or something?
Yeah. You're thinking about when he was in high school.
Okay.
He had that baseball
That's
accident.
right.
And it was like a really serious facial injury.
Oh, wow.
And he had to go through years of rehab.
Oh, man.
And,
Well-
I think a lot of people would have been like,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's it for my athletic career.
Get it.
I'm done.
But he didn't give up.
Yeah, he did.
He used those same principles that he writes about in the book,
Okay.
these tiny 1% improvements every day,
Yeah.
and applied them to his rehab,
Right.
to his training.
Wow.
And it was like that British cycling story.
Oh, yeah.
But on a personal level,
Yeah.
he ended up not only getting back on the field, but he became an All-American athlete and set a school record.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, if that's not proof that this stuff works,
I see.
I don't know what is.
Exactly.
But, okay, let's, back up a little bit.
Yeah.
For someone who, hasn't read the book yet,
Sure.
what's the main idea here? So the core idea of the book is that it's actually these tiny changes,
Okay.
like the ones we hardly even notice,
Okay.
that make the biggest difference.
Okay.
Not the big dramatic gestures we usually try to make.
Got it.
He calls it the aggregation of marginal gains,
Uh-huh.
but it sounds way fancier than it is.
Okay.
It's basically just the idea that a bunch of small improvements
Right.
can add up to something huge.
Got it.
He uses this analogy of investing.
Okay.
Even if you have a really tiny return,
Yeah.
if you compound it over time,
Right.
you can end up with a ton of money.
Makes sense.
So it's the same with habits.
Oh, okay.
If you just focus on getting a little bit better each day,
Uh-huh.
eventually all those tiny improvements
Yeah.
will add up to a really big transformation.
So instead of trying to change our whole lives all at once,
Exactly.
we should be focusing on those tiny tweaks that we can actually stick with.
Right.
No wonder all those New Year's resolutions never work out.
Yeah, it's all about consistency. Clear uses this example of the British cycling team
Okay.
and how they became so successful.
Right.
And it wasn't like they found some miracle training program or
Yeah, yeah.
anything. It was just that they focused on making everything,
Okay.
even the tiniest things,
Yeah.
1% better.
Okay.
So they improved their bike seats.
Wow.
They adjusted tire pressure.
Uh-huh.
They even figured out the best sleep positions.
That's so crazy.
All these tiny little things
Right.
added up to massive wins.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could apply to anything.
Right.
But how do you actually find
Yeah.
those 1% changes that are worth focusing on?
That's a good question.
It seems like it would be so easy to just
Yeah,
get overwhelmed
Right.
and not know where to start.
totally. And that's where the idea of identity-based habit building comes in.
Okay.
Clear argues that we should focus on who we want to become,
Okay.
not just the specific outcomes we're trying to achieve.
Right.
So it's not like I want to lose 10 pounds.
It's I want to be a healthy person.
Okay.
That shift in thinking
Yeah.
is what makes the small changes feel meaningful.
Right.
It's not just another thing on your to-do list.
Got it.
It's part of who you are.
Okay, so instead of aiming for a specific goal weight,
Yeah.
I should be thinking about
Yeah.
what would a person who naturally maintains a healthy weight do?
Right.
They'd probably eat more veggies.
Yeah.
They'd probably move their body regularly.
Probably.
Okay, I'm starting to get the strategy.
You start to notice the actions that align with that desired identity,
Okay,
and those become your 1% improvements.
got it.
So it might be packing healthy lunch
Yeah,
or taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Just
Yeah.
small steps
yeah.
that over time add up to the person you want to be.
Okay, this is
Yeah.
totally changing how I'm thinking about this whole thing.
Yeah.
But Clear doesn't just drop this identity bomb on us
Right.
and then leave us to figure it out on our own.
No.
He gives us a framework.
There's like a system?
Yeah. He introduces the 4 laws of behavior change.
Okay.
Which are make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy,
got it,
and make it satisfying.
Okay.
And they sound pretty simple.
Yeah.
But they're actually incredibly powerful tools for designing habits that stick.
And it's about designing both good habits and breaking bad ones, right?
Absolutely.
Because let's be real, sometimes it feels like those bad habits are like super glued to us.
Right. And they work on that same compounding principle.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But the good news is
the
4 laws can be used in both directions.
Got it.
So let's make it obvious, for example.
Okay.
Clear talks about becoming aware of your habit cues.
Okay.
So what are the things that trigger you to reach for that bag of chips?
Oh, yeah.
Or to mindlessly scroll through social media?
Yeah.
Once you understand those cues, you can either avoid them or you can use them to your advantage.
So it's like instead of a trail of breadcrumbs to get lost in the woods, it's like breadcrumbs for good habits.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you can use visual cues.
Okay.
Like leaving your workout clothes out.
Right.
Where you'll see them.
Yeah.
Or even something as simple as putting a book on your pillow.
Okay.
To remind you to read before bed.
Got it.
You're making the desired action obvious and available.
So I'm not just like fighting my bad habits. I'm actually like setting myself up for success.
Exactly.
Like the good ones.
You're working with your brain.
Okay.
Not against it.
I like that.
And you can use that same principle of make it obvious to break bad habits as well.
Okay.
So Clear talks about this technique called habit stacking.
Oh, yeah.
Where you link a new habit to an existing one.
Okay.
So for example, if you always make coffee first thing in the morning, you could drink a glass of water.
Okay.
Right before that. Make it automatic.
So I don't even have to think about it.
Exactly.
It's just part of the routine.
Right.
That's brilliant.
So by making those good habits obvious and the bad ones less so, you're setting yourself up for success.
Okay.
Without having to rely solely on willpower.
This is making so much sense.
And you know, it's really interesting.
Good.
Clear doesn't just focus on manipulating our external environment.
Okay.
He also dives into the power of making those good habits appealing.
Okay.
And that's where make it attractive comes in.
Got it.
So we'll get into that after a quick break.
Sounds good. All right, so we talked about making it obvious, making it easy.
Yeah.
But make it attractive. Like, how do you make something you don't like doing attractive?
Well, it's not about, like, tricking yourself, you know?
Okay.
It's more about understanding, like, how your brain works.
Right.
And using that to your advantage.
Okay.
So you know how we were talking about, like, the dopamine feedback loop?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that, like, anticipation plays a huge role in that.
So it's not just about the reward itself.
Right.
It's about, like, looking forward to it.
Exactly. Okay. And we can actually, like, hack that system.
Okay.
To make those good habits more appealing.
Got it.
So one way Claire suggests doing this is with what he calls temptation bundling.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah. Is that like the guy who rigged a stationary bike?
Yes.
So it would only work if he was watching Netflix.
That's the one.
That was brilliant.
It's like he gained percent of his workout.
Totally. But like, how do I apply that to my life?
Yeah.
Like, I can't hook my treadmill up to the TV.
Right. It doesn't have to be that complicated.
Okay.
Just think about things you already enjoy doing and see if you compare them with habits you're trying to build.
Okay.
So for example, maybe you only listen to your favorite podcast when you're out for a walk.
Okay.
Or you only let yourself have a bubble bath.
Right.
After you've finished a certain amount of work. Got it.
You're basically creating a positive association with the habit.
So it's not about like forcing myself to do stuff I hate.
Right.
It's more about like finding ways to make the good stuff more enjoyable.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And you can use the same kind of like reframing technique to make bad habits less appealing.
Okay, how do you do that?
So instead of focusing on what you're giving up, you highlight the benefits of quitting.
Okay.
So instead of saying like, ugh, I can't eat dessert, you say, I'm choosing to nourish my body with healthy food.
So you're like focusing on the positive.
Exactly. Okay. You're shifting your mindset.
I like that.
It's a much more empowering way.
Right, because it feels like a choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a punishment.
Right.
Okay, so we've talked about making it obvious, making it attractive, making it easy. But what about like keeping the momentum going?
Right.
Like we've all had those moments where we're super motivated.
And then like a week later, we've totally lost steam.
Yeah, that's why the 4th law, make it satisfying, is so important.
Okay.
Our brains are wired to prioritize immediate gratification.
Right, like that marshmallow experiment.
Exactly.
The kids who could wait got more marshmallows later.
Right.
But it's so hard to resist that temptation.
It is, and that's why we need to find ways to make those good habits rewarding
Okay.
in the short term.
So even if the ultimate payoff is way down the line,
Right.
we still get that little hit of dopamine.
Exactly.
All right.
And Clear suggests using what he calls reinforcement
Okay.
to make those good habits satisfying.
So it's like giving yourself a little reward.
Yeah, like a pat on the back for a job well done.
So it could be something as simple as like acknowledging how good you feel
Right.
after a workout
Yeah.
or having a cup of tea after you finish studying.
Exactly.
It's about associating those good feelings with the habit.
Right. And you can also use habit tracking
Okay.
to visualize your progress.
Is that like when Jerry Seinfeld marked an X on his calendar?
Yeah.
Every day he wrote jokes.
That's the one.
It's so simple, but it's like,
It's brilliant.
yeah, it's like a visual reminder of your progress.
Exactly.
And it's motivating too.
It is. You're not just relying on willpower at that point.
Right.
You're tapping into your brain's reward system
Okay.
and making those good habits satisfying on like a deeper level.
Okay, so we've covered the 4 laws.
Yeah.
Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. And that gives us a framework for building those good habits.
Right.
But Clearer doesn't just stop there.
No, he doesn't.
He talks about taking things to the next level,
Yeah.
going from good to great.
Exactly. So he emphasizes that habits are the foundation,
Okay,
but they're not the end point.
got it.
You need to keep challenging yourself
Okay.
and refining your approach.
So it's not about just becoming like a robot
Right.
and mindlessly repeating the same actions over and over.
Exactly. It's about being intentional and constantly striving to improve.
But how do you know what to focus on?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Like, where do you even begin?
So Core talks about the importance of finding your game,
Okay.
the areas where your natural talents and interests intersect.
Okay, so it's like finding your passion.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, choose a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Right. But, like, how do you actually find that sweet spot?
Yeah. And it can feel like a lot of pressure to figure out your one true calling.
Right. What if you're interested in, like, a million things?
That's where this idea of the explore-exploit trade-off comes in.
Okay.
You need to experiment
Okay.
and try different things
Oh.
to discover what you're good at
Yeah.
and what you enjoy.
Got it.
And it's an ongoing process, too.
Okay.
Because your interests and abilities are going to evolve over time.
Right. So it's not about, like, finding the perfect path.
Exactly.
It's more about, like, being curious and open to new things.
Yeah, just keep learning and growing.
I like that.
But even when you have found something you love,
Yeah.
staying motivated can still be a challenge.
Totally. Like, how do you keep that fire burning?
Right, especially when the initial excitement wears off.
Exactly.
So Clear talks about the importance of finding the Goldilocks zone of challenge.
what's that?
So if something's too easy,
Yeah.
we get bored.
Right.
But if it's too hard,
Uh-huh.
we get discouraged.
That makes sense.
But when it's just the right level of difficulty,
Yeah.
that's when we enter that flow state.
Oh, yeah, flow state.
Yeah.
Like when you're totally absorbed in what you're doing.
Yeah, and time just kind of disappears.
It's the best.
And Clear argues that this flow state
Okay.
is where we do our best work
Right.
and where we experience the most fulfillment.
That makes sense.
So it's about finding that sweet spot
Yeah.
where you're challenged but not overwhelmed,
Right.
where you're pushing yourself,
Uh-huh.
but you're also enjoying the process.
It's like that perfect balance. But
Exactly.
even with like the perfect challenge, yeah,
There are going to be days when you're just not feeling it.
totally. Motivation comes and goes.
So what do you do on those days?
Well, Clear acknowledges that you can't always control your motivation,
Okay.
but you can create an environment
Okay.
that supports your desired actions.
So even when you're not feeling inspired,
Right.
you're still more likely to do the thing.
Exactly. It goes back to that make it easy principle.
Okay.
If you've already reduced the friction,
Yeah.
it takes less effort to get started.
Right. Even when you're not feeling super motivated.
Exactly. It's like having a backup plan
I like that.
for when your brain isn't cooperating.
Okay. So we've covered finding your game,
Uh-huh.
the importance of flow state,
Right.
how to stay motivated even when you're not feeling it.
Yeah.
Is there anything else Clear talks about?
Well, you know what I found really interesting?
What?
He also talks about like the potential downsides
Okay.
of relying too heavily on habits.
Wait, good habits can have a downside. Yeah. So his argument is that when habits become too automatic,
Okay.
we can stop paying attention to the details
Okay.
and our performance can actually decline.
So you're saying like we can get too comfortable?
Right. We can get complacent
Okay.
and just go through the motions without really thinking about what we're doing.
So we need to find a way to like keep things fresh.
Yeah.
Like challenge ourselves and not get stuck in a rut.
Exactly. He talks about the importance of deliberate practice,
Okay.
where you're consciously focusing on improving your performance,
Got it.
even when the habit feels automatic.
So you're not just mindlessly doing the thing.
Right.
You're actually thinking about how to do it better.
Exactly.
Okay, but how do you know what to focus on?
So Clear suggests having a system
Okay.
of reflection and review.
Okay.
He recommends doing like an annual review,
Okay.
where you take stock of your progress,
Uh-huh.
celebrate your wins,
Right.
and identify areas where you can do better.
So it's like a yearly check-in
Yeah.
with yourself. Exactly.
Okay, but it doesn't have to be just once a year.
Right.
You know?
Not at all.
Okay.
He also talks about creating what he calls an integrity report.
What's that?
It's where you reflect on your core values
Okay.
and how your habits are aligning with those values.
So it's like making sure that your actions are
Yeah.
matching up with your beliefs.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
It's about being intentional
Right.
and making sure that your habits are serving you.
Not the other way around.
Right.
But what about those times when, like, life throws you a curveball?
Yeah.
Like, what happens when your circumstances change
Right.
and your old habits don't work anymore?
That's where the concept of identity flexibility comes in.
Okay.
Clearia argues that we shouldn't cling too tightly
Okay.
to any single aspect of our identity.
So, like, if you've always defined yourself as a runner
Yeah.
and then you get injured,
Uh-huh.
you don't have to lose your whole sense of self.
Exactly. You can embrace the qualities that make you a runner.
The discipline, the perseverance, the love of challenge,
Right.
and apply them to new areas of your life.
So it's like those core values
Yeah.
are still there. They're
Yeah.
just being expressed in a different way.
Exactly.
Mm.
And Clear argues that this identity flexibility
Yeah.
makes us better able to adapt to new circumstances
Right.
and develop new habits as needed.
So it's not about being rigid or dogmatic.
Yeah.
It's about having a growth mindset.
Okay. And being open to change
I like that.
and seeing our habits as tools
Okay.
that can support us in our ever-evolving journeys.
So it's like we're constantly evolving. Our habits should evolve too.
Exactly. And, you know, one thing that really struck me about this whole idea of tiny changes
Yeah.
is that it's not really about the outcome.
Okay.
It's more about, like, the transformation
Right.
that happens along the way.
Okay.
You become a different person
Right.
through the process of building these habits.
Yeah, it's like that quote,
Uh-huh.
we are what we repeatedly do. It's not just about the actions.
Yeah.
It's about how those actions like shape who we are.
And that's why this approach is so powerful,
Okay.
because it's not about willpower or motivation,
Right.
which can be so fleeting.
Yeah, totally.
It's about building a system
Okay.
that supports your desired identity.
Got it.
So those good habits
Yeah.
become almost inevitable.
Okay, so like if our listeners listening to this,
Yeah.
what's the one thing you want them to like take away?
Okay. If I had to pick one thing,
Yeah.
it would be to focus on building a system,
Okay.
not chasing goals.
So it's not about like hitting that number on the scale
Right.
or
Yeah.
getting that promotion.
Exactly. It's about creating a life
Okay.
where those things just kind of happen naturally
Right.
because you've built the right habits.
Yeah.
The habits that reflect the person you want to be.
So it's like playing the long game,
Yeah.
setting yourself up for success.
Exactly.
It's not a quick fix.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, totally.
And the best part is
Okay.
you don't have to wait for some magical moment of inspiration.
Right.
You can start today,
Okay.
right now,
Yeah.
with one small change.
Okay.
Just make it obvious. Make it attractive.
Right.
Make it easy.
Yeah.
Make it satisfying.
Got it.
Just keep repeating that process,
Uh-huh.
1% improvement at a time,
Yeah.
and see what happens.
I love that it's like so simple.
It is.
It's so powerful.
Yeah, you really do have the power
Right.
to create the future you want.
Just one little habit at a time.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about progress.
Yeah.
You're going to have setbacks.
Ah.
You're going to have days when you fall off track,
Totally.
but that's okay.
Right.
Just get back up.
Yeah.
Dust yourself off.
And keep going.
Keep moving forward.
Okay, well, it's been so great talking about atomic habits with you.
Yeah, this was fun.
Thank you for like breaking it all down for us.
My pleasure.
And to our listener, we hope this deep dive has given you some like real strategies you can use to start building the life you want Right. One small habit at a time.
It's not about being someone else.
Right.
It's about becoming the best version of yourself.
Exactly. And it all starts with those tiny little changes
Ah,
that over time can lead to some pretty amazing results.
they really can.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.
See you next time on the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery. Until next time.
See you then.